You don't need to be a football fan to understand that local rivalries are often the fiercest. Manchester City versus Man United, Liverpool versus Everton. When two teams from the same area come together, there's just that little bit more tension in the air. The new Mercedes-AMG SL55. Given that it is aiming directly at the Porsche 911, this is like a hometown derby in automotive form.
A bit of context. Mercedes and Porsche are both from Stuttgart, and while they seemingly do things rather differently, there's a bit of local pride on the line. A long time ago, Ferdinand Porsche Sr. worked for Mercedes and designed racing cars for them, before he got sacked. And, well, you can probably figure out the rest of the puzzle there. In the post-war era, Porsche became a pure sports car brand, while Mercedes focused on luxury saloons. But Mercedes never quite forgot its sporting roots, and 70 years ago it launched the revolutionary SL, or Sports Light. Originally a racing car, it won races all over the world, before spawning a road car and then a roadster version a few years later.
From its racing car roots, the SL Roadster matured into something a little more luxurious. Still open top, but just more grown up. The 911 became Porsche's signature, and the SL, the same for Mercedes. But if there was ever a truce called between these two hometown rivals, the SL55 completely blows that out of the water. Costing just shy of £150,000, this is coming straight for the Porsche 911. The gloves are officially off. Sure, you can get your SL with the 4-cylinder in the SL43, and there is a hybrid coming in due course. But this one, if that SL55 name is ringing any bells, you are not mistaken. This is like Mercedes rediscovering its early noughties naughtiness. Packing a 4-litre V8 engine with a mega 476 horsepower and 0 to 62 in less than 4 seconds. The new SL55 is a welcome return to the badge that very much put AMG on the map 20 years ago. And while that formula of a big, noisy V8 engine with loads of power and even more attitude might seem familiar, this new school SL55 is very much a different beast.
That's because Mercedes has brought some new toys to the party. It's the first AMG SL with all-wheel drive, and the first with all-wheel steering. But where does this new SL fit in Mercedes terms? Draw a line between the older, softer SL and the hardcore AMG GT Roadster, and this new SL sits right between them. Sharp, triangular headlights sit at the front of that long bonnet. They frame the large radiator grille and taper towards the wheels. 19s are fitted as standard, but 20 and 21-inch alloys are available. At the back, an active rear spoiler hides in the boot lid, and quad exhausts sit either side of a gloss black diffuser.
It's a real mix of technology and tradition. I mean, look at this interior. Mercedes calls it hyper-analog, so while it might look a little more old school than the likes of the EQS with that wide hyper-screen, it's actually just as techy, whilst also offering the very best in leather-lined luxury. Here we've got this 3D visor-style instrument cluster, which is fully configurable and digital. Possibly even more impressive is this giant tablet-like display in the centre of the car, which is jam-packed full of functionality. It's running the latest MBUX operating system, and it is generally very cool. And it also has this, where you can change the display angle so you can avoid the glare of the sun. How cool is that? Like the Porsche 911, the SL is a 2+2, which means there are 2 seats in the back. Sort of. They're not massive, but you might be able to fit a small human in there or a golf bag, whatever floats your boat.
This SL55 is what's called the Premium Plus, which means a sportier look with black leather and darker trimmings. At 147 grand, it's not cheap. But to pick an entirely random example, that's almost the same as its hometown rival, the 911 Carrera 4 GTS Cabriolet.
Another change is this switch back to fabric roof after generations of a folding hardtop. Mercedes says that it actually sheds some weight, and you can put it down at around 40 miles an hour in about 15 seconds. Not only that, but it has this air scarf which shoots hot air down your neck, which actually isn't quite as creepy as it sounds and really rather nice. But it means that you've got no excuse but to go out with the roof down at every opportunity. It's time to go for a drive. In so many ways, the SL is actually really faithful to the generations before. But again, in so many ways, it's really very different. Remember how I said earlier how the SL stands for Sports Light? I have a bit of a problem with that because this car weighs over 2 tons. 2 tons! But the good news is that Mercedes has used all of its tech to make the SL55 drive like it weighs half as much. The all-wheel drive is an absolute first for the SL, which means that you can drive comfortably no matter what the conditions. It handles so well. That is the magic of this SL. It's got so much more bandwidth.
Seating position feels a bit low, so it feels like a big car, but you do soon get used to that because, well, quickly you fall for how it feels to drive. It's not massively smooth, even in comfort mode, but I had fairly low expectations for that, and it's the sort of car you want to drive, not feel like you're being gently paraded around in. That said, gear changes are very smooth, and it handles the road exquisitely. Everything feels effortless. Everything feels a lot of fun.
Thanks to the tech, it can do all the refined mooching that the old SL did, but now it has a lot more, I don't know, grrr, like the AMG GT.
When Mercedes launched the first SL 70 years ago, it started out as a purebred sports car that gradually became more luxurious. But now, decades later, the story looks to have come full circle. All the new tech means this SL really can be all things to all drivers.
This is, of course, exactly what Porsche has refined over its many decades that it's been perfecting the 911. Something that nobody has dared to challenge for as long as anyone can remember. Nobody until now. This hometown derby just got serious.